Good evening and welcome to Spotlight on Jackson County. Tonight we have a very interesting guest. He is Mr. Benny Goff. He is the assessor for Jackson County. Benny, known you for a long time. Glad to see you. There's a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of things that people don't know about taxes and how they're assessed and the value of your home and the realignment as far as the values go. Could you give us some little insight on what's going on with all that? Tell us exactly what people don't know and what they should know.
We can. I'll probably ramble some,
That's
so that'll
fine.
be okay. Many years ago, there were some inequities in the tax structure and how taxes were paid or assessed, I guess is the best way of saying it. And there was a court case that says we're going to fix that. And every 4 years from there on, there's going to be a revaluation of the properties in every county. And it's called equity or fair taxes or equalization. There's all kind of words out there. And so by the legislature, we are responsible every 4 years to do a reval. Now, we had a little glitch with Katrina. That year, the year Katrina hit was the year we were supposed to do our regular rotation. And the State Tax Commission worked with us and gave us an opportunity to put it off for 2 years because everything we had done was destroyed. I mean, we didn't have a tax base. Now, with that said, our job is value. And we have several ways of getting that. Cost of construction, those kind of things. But basically what we deal with is market. And it's predicated on sales and how the market. I laugh at folks. They went to Sunday school last Sunday, and a young couple had refinanced their house. And they said, "You have got to lower my taxes." And I said, "Well, first of all, I don't do taxes, but why would I need to lower your value?" She said, "Well, we just got a new appraisal, and it's not as much as the old appraisal." And then she laughed and she said, "But it's still lower than what you have us on the roll for." So, and she was just kind of janking my chain. But that's what we do. We do values. And we've heard in the last 6 months, ever how long it's been going on, about how property values are going down, going down, going down. Foreclosures are high. And I don't know if you know this, and I won't have it exactly right, but I heard the other day on the news that there are about 4 or 5 counties in the United States of America that's responsible for about 85% of all the foreclosures. Isn't that interesting?
Very.
And of course, now there's a decline in market. Our market has stabilized and probably down some as compared with what it was after Katrina, because everybody went crazy after Katrina. You know, if you had a livable place, it was worth a lot more than it on the typical market. But one thing that I think the folks in Jackson County need to be aware of is, and this is where we're coming from, before Katrina, the house was worth $100,000.
As an example.
As an example. After Katrina, the house went to $225,000, just went off the chart. Well, now that $225,000 is back down to $175,000. Okay, if you look at the percentage, it's down a whole bunch, but it's still worth more than it was before Katrina. And that's some of the stuff we're dealing with. Our values are based on sales, and I've got a great staff, and they do neighborhoods, and this property in this neighborhood is really, really depressed. So we whack those values. But over here, the sales are carrying. For example, if you remember the first year, all the candidates for mayor in Ocean Springs were going to lower taxes, do taxes, make Goff do a reval. Well, when we set this thing up with the State Tax Commission, after Katrina, we knew we was in a mess. We didn't know exactly where they were going. The values we had we thought were good, but they gave us some levity to work on the thing. So as soon as we get the rollout in 2008, we started again working on the roll. And all those folks that jumped on the bandwagon, Goff needs to be doing a reval, we were already working on it. That was a part of our 3-year plan anyhow. But there's an area in Ocean Springs that instead of being depressed, they actually increased. So we've got a hodgepodge of stuff going on in Jackson County.
But you can't set the assessed value. You can't lower anybody's taxes. So if you got a political candidate coming to you and say lower the taxes, so lower the assessed value because so I can decrease the tax burden on my citizens, that's impossible. That's a myth that isn't true.
Well, no, actually, it goes back to sales. You know, we have a ratio that we work on, and of course you have with standard deviation. I'm not going to get into all that technical stuff, but you're going to have some higher and some lower because of the way it works. But we have a real tight dispersion. And no, you're exactly right. Let me tell you an interesting story. A friend of mine, a guy who is out in the world, 72 years old, and I'm not talking about somebody that lived out there in the woods that didn't know anything, and called me one morning and said, Benny, our little coffee discussion on around breakfast, we're going to talk about taxes more, and I want to know more about it than anybody, and so I called you. And I said, all right, what you need to know? He said, well, tell me how you do your budget. And I said, well, I do it. I got my employees, my folks, my this, that I went through. He said, no. How you do the county budget? I said, I don't do the county budget. I said, that's the Board of Supervisors deal. And he said, well, how do you set millage?
You don't.
I said, I don't set millage. That's a function of the cities, the schools, and the Board of Supervisors. And this guy, it scared me. I said, if he doesn't know, how many people don't know what we do here?
That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here to tell us. So you don't have anything to do with setting millages. You don't have anything to do with setting taxes. All you do is assess value.
Exactly. We place values.
And then your taxes are determined by the assessed value on your property.
Exactly.
And if you add something to your property, say you go out there and you build another building, or you do some sort of improvement, your assessed value is going to go up.
Exactly.
Which means ultimately your taxes may go up.
Increase. Exactly. And see, and down here in Jackson County, we're real fortunate as far as being equitable. If you build something, you have to get a permit. And see, we work permits, which it helps us instead of having to. We get it every 4 years. We get it on a yearly basis there. But on our normal cycle, we do a 4-year cycle. So we drive by and look, and people think we do windshield appraisals, and sometimes we do because when you drive up to this house and you can see the whole lot. And the roof line's the same, there's no use in getting out and remeasuring the house. We've already got all that information. And so we put along pretty fast on those. But typically they get out and walk around and look at everything. And what's really funny about it is people come in and there's a 4x4 slab on their property record card. My mind went blank there. And they said, well, that thing it's not worth anything, but if it's on there, the state tax commission says you put it on there. They're pretty specific about what we do. And if we fail our ratio, back to that ratio thing, if we don't keep our ratio up, then you'll lose your homestead. And you don't want to do that. It's not worth all that. So the best thing for us to do is do a good job. And I probably got the best one in the state. We've educated them. The Board of Supervisors bought into the fact that the better educated you do, the better educated you are, the better job you do. And our folks, we send them to school, and they do a good job. We had one girl this year, one young lady, that made 100 on an income approach. That's unbelievable. And that's the kind of people we got out there. And we got the people that's in charge of the appraisal, just real computer literate, can really do stuff. I don't even go over and fool with them. I just say, what's the end product look like? No, they are just great folks.
But Benny Goff don't set the rules. The state sets the rules, and you have to follow them.
Exactly.
And people sometimes probably call you wanting you to make changes to these rules, don't they?
Well, when people call in, and by the way, let's set something right up front. We're not perfect. We are going to make mistakes. And I encourage folks, if they think we've made a mistake, they call us. Because if we've made a mistake, we can fix mistakes now. But now we can't fix rules. We've got standards that we have to go by. But if Doug calls me and says, Benny, I got a $100,000 house and you got on it $300,000, well, we've either messed up really bad or you don't know what your house is worth. Now, you come in and we look at it and we'll tell you what we've got and compare notes, and typically we won't make that big. If we make a mistake like that, it's a big one, but most of the time we're pretty much on target. And then it goes back to the sales in the neighborhood. Had two guys came in from Ocean Springs 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they were older folks and astute. They'd done their homework and they wanted to see why these values were. And what's really funny about it is they weren't antagonistic. They just wanted to know. They were information seekers. And we sat them down and went through, probably spent 45 minutes with them. And when we got through with them, they understood their values and why they were what they were. And they were okay with them. And typically that's what we run into. When we were doing this 2008 protest, I tell you how good we thought our values were. All the realtors gave us thumbs up, did a good job. One realtor called me and said, listen, I need to be on your payroll. And I said, why is that? He said, well, I got 10 of these notices on my desk. And I said, well, how did we do? And he said, well, 9 of them are good. One of them looks bad. And I said, really, what's the bad one? And he said, it's a lot in Moss Point. And I said, really? I said, what's the value? He said, $170,000. I said, that's off the chart kind of to me. I said, well, let me pull it up. And as I was pulling it up on the computer, I said, yeah, you got a problem. It's $170. It was a little old trashy piece, not trashy, just a small piece that was out there. And the guy had given him the wrong numbers. He'd called him on the telephone and told him about it. And he said, well, that's 10 out of 10. And that's the kind of results that we got out of that thing. We had one protest that came, and he just wouldn't go away. And he spent an hour and a half. I told the Board of Supervisors this yesterday. They didn't know. And he spent an hour and a half before the board and convinced that he was right and just brought up all kind of comparisons that were not a fit. When we left that protest, we came back to the office, and this guy from his neighborhood, as we found out later, came in and laid his stuff down and said, listen, I think y'all made a mistake here. And he said, I got my protest papers ready to sign. I said, well, wait a minute, now protest is over with. You can't do that. And so he started folding up his tent to go in. I said, well, wait a minute, just like I told you, let's look at it and see what we got. And as we was pulling it up, Nick pulled it up, and he said, do you know that we've already fixed this neighborhood? And he said, no, I didn't get that notice. And he said, well, this is what we got. And he said, oh, that's fair, and went to the house. And the other guy argued for an hour and a half that his was wrong. And it's just, but it's people and not knowing. But now this guy knew what his place was worth, and we were wrong. We had made a mistake because we got some sales in at the tail end. Nick already knew we had a problem because we got some sales at the tail end of the appraisal thing that Dick showed me. He said, these are high, and he had already fixed them. That's why I say this computer stuff, neighborhoods. This neighborhood was not as high as we thought it was.
Benny, going to have to take a short break here. Don't go away. We'll be back with more with Benny Goff, our county assessor.
Is that too much?
Welcome back to Spotlight on Jackson County. We've got a very interesting conversation going with somebody I've known for a long time. That's Benny Goff. He's our assessor in Jackson County. Benny, welcome back. We're talking about taxes, assessing values, fairness, equity, and along those lines, you wrote a letter to the editor back in April covering exactly that. And some of the things in here were interesting. And you were trying to explain to the people exactly what your job was, what your office did, and how values were assessed, and trying to really get out there the information to the people about how this takes place and how some people have no control over it, and they say that they do politically, and I'm not going to get into that football, but give us a little idea about what your letter was about.
Well, we just had some folks making statements that I didn't think that they could back up legally. And we just wanted to get the message out there. Our job was to get out and look at properties and through our sales files get a value. And I laugh, a lot of folks think that at one time we just took darts and threw a dart at the wall. Oh, that's $100,000. It's a little more complicated than that. We got a staff of about 30 folks that drive out and look at properties, and we got field notes that we call them data entry cards, and then everybody's got a property record card that they put all that stuff in. And we know what we got out there. I think we mentioned a while ago windshield appraisals. We know what's out there. We just go and check it every 4 years. Now, our cycle is going to be 2012. it's going to be interesting to see how it works. We feel like we'll probably have a 10 or 15% increase. We don't know that, but just from what it looks like, the recovery will be started, and we'll be moving on. Now back to the letter to the editor. The folks was asking that Benny Goff go back out and do a reappraisal. And I mentioned earlier that we worked out a deal with the State Tax Commission that we could put some values on, because we thought they were going to continue to go up. And as it turned out, it became stagnant kind of. And so we'd already started looking at what we were supposed to be doing. And I laugh at these folks that I call them Johnny come lately when they go to making statements in the paper or on radio or TV that they can do this or he needs to do that, and they don't understand what we do for a living. And our job, like I say, Doug, is value. And we've got a great staff, and they work hard, and I'm real proud of them. God has really blessed me with good people, and Jackson County needs to be proud of them too, because they do a good job.
Now, Katrina hit us and really
blew it out of the way.
Blew it out of the water. How are we doing as far as the recovery? How's Jackson County doing as far as coming back from that? Have we, obviously we might not have reached a point where we've even gotten back to, or maybe just a little bit higher than we were before the storm?
Well, there's several things involved in this recovery. First of all, the economy right now is a whacker. But if you remember, after the storm, we had water that we'd never had before.
Oh, absolutely.
So everybody started readjusting how high is water going to get, so how high do you need to build? And that was a deterrent, because we still got folks that don't want to build up on stilts. And then the insurance thing has been a real problem. A friend of mine called me the other day, he said, my insurance and taxes is more than my house note. Being insurance was really whacking him. And I'm not sure where that's going to wind up, Doug. But now the recovery part, north of I-10, it's doing pretty good. There's a lot of growth. I talked to a guy from Georgia, well, actually a power company employee yesterday that said George County is rolling along pretty good. But it's out of that insurance thing, and it's away from the storm stuff, and they're moving along pretty good.
Are we seeing like an exodus of people north?
Now, I think it's that's an interesting question. Remind me to go back to that. We had that for a while, because if you notice the shift in the population from the city out, and even the country in Jackson County, we've had an explosion of growth in St. Martin, East Central, and Vancouver. It's just, that's where the new growth is coming. And but I laugh at people talking about their taxes, and this is something they need to think about. When those folks left Jackson County and moved to George County, they moved up there because of lower taxes. But when they got there, they wanted better schools, they wanted better fire protection, they wanted better police protection, they wanted better roads, and guess what? The millage out in George County is higher than the millage in our county, in Jackson County. Not the cities, but in the county. Because when you go out there and you expect stuff, somebody's got to pay for it. And they do it with a millage. And the Board of Supervisors does set that millage, by the way.
Yes, yes. Yes, the Board of Supervisors is the one that has the reign on that. They have the ability to set it higher or to set it lower.
Of course, now the cities and the schools also have their piece of. But it's really interesting. Some of those things that the Board of Supervisors have, they don't have a choice about the schools. You know, that's coming on, and
state law.
Some of those things they're burdened with those right up front. And I don't know how much levity they do, because I don't get into the money part. Because I don't deal with money. God in His infinite wisdom put me in a job where I didn't deal with money because He figured I'd steal it anyhow. I was kidding. My wife says I don't need to say that. But I don't deal with money, ain't you?
And if somebody sees an assessor come out and they're measuring their driveway or something like that, that's because they have to under state law. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pay for every square centimeter of that driveway.
Oh, no. Like I think I mentioned earlier, if it's on the property and we don't have it on the property, we get a check mark, and we get too many check marks, then you lose your homestead. So we try to be as astute as possible. We get the driveway is not taxed, the fence is not taxed, but we've got to have it on there.
Now, homestead exemption is a very, very important part for a homeowner.
Yes, sir.
If you don't have that, talk about high taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's incumbent upon you and your office to do it right, or everybody in the county suffers.
Exactly.
And that's what they need to understand.
Exactly.
Without your homestead exemption, whoa.
Well, just for example, if your taxes are $1,500 and straight across that 15%, and you come in and just file a 10% thing, we call it the military thing, they go to $1,000. That takes $500 off right up the top, and then you get up to another $300 for homestead. But it's a nice package.
But if the state were to catch our county doing something wrong as far as assessing values, everybody would lose.
We're subject to lose our homestead, yes, sir.
All of us.
All of us. Everybody, not
one.
just one. Everybody.
That's serious.
It is.
Talk about a serious problem.
No, if you come in and lie about your homestead, you can lose yours and a $5,000 fine. But if I mess up, we all get whacked.
So that's what people need to understand. You have a very serious job, and you have a staff that's dedicated to making sure that don't happen, which is actually looking out for the citizens of Jackson County, whether they realize it or not. And you're not the one that's making all of this happen. The state of Mississippi, folks, the state of Mississippi is making Benny Goff's people go out there and do these assessments.
Which, in the long run, Doug, is fair. As we were talking earlier before we started, if I got an old house that's worth $300,000 and you build a new house that's worth $300,000, yours is going to be on the roll at closer to $300,000 and mine may be $100,000, and that's not fair. That's what this revow does. Equity, it's an equity thing.
How does that happen? The older home being valued at less?
Well, before reappraisal.
Okay.
And after reappraisal, see, if the selling price, if this old house is selling for $250,000 instead of $40,000, then it's going to move up on the roll, which is where it's supposed to be. It just spreads it out better. It's actually, people fuss about revals, but reval is probably the fairest thing that we got going on.
So let's say somebody has a question about their taxes and the value of their house. They can come to your office and talk to you about it. If they want to find out what their house is really worth, they could get a separate evaluation.
They can get a private appraisal.
Private appraisal. They can come in and say, this is what this private appraiser appraised my home for. And you can look at it and go, okay. And so you can make a decision.
We can work on a decision.
We can work on a decision like that. And I know you, Benny. Your office is always open for questions on the phone. You don't turn anybody away. I mean, you're always there helping people. You just don't push them out the door. You'll talk to them and make sure everything's fair.
Well, I appreciate that, because one of the things that I get so distraught about is bureaucracy. If you come into the office and say, oh, that's not my job, we don't, listen, if you come in with a justice court problem, we're going to try to help you and find it. And our folks have bought into the fact that that's what we're here for, to help folks. And they do a really, really good. I got some good public relations folks that take care of people. And they go above where they're supposed to be. But I don't bring a lot to the office, but that personal touch of taking care of people. I don't do the computer real well, but I'm going to take care of Doug.
I know you will.
And that's our job.
But you see, leadership is leading by example, and I think that your staff is following your example.
Well, they're good folks, and we're real blessed to have them, I do.
And so are you, Benny. We got about 2 minutes here. Any last information you'd like for the taxpayers of Jackson County to know?
One more time.
One more time.
I want to tell you, we're not perfect. If you think you've got a problem, call us. And typically we're going to be right, but we're going to make mistakes. And it's really important to be satisfied with the thing. And I encourage folks to call us. And now, if it's just a whim or wish, don't do it just for fun. But if you seriously think we got a problem, we'll work with you, and tell you why we got what we got. And just like the guys from Ocean Springs, they came in looking for information. They got information. They left happy. Now, they weren't happy about their taxes, and my taxes are too high. Yours probably are too. In your mind, you think they're too high. But I can't deal with the tax end of it. I can tell you about the values. But we're still a pretty good bargain down here.
Benny, it's been an interesting show. I really do appreciate you taking time coming in.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. We want to have you back and tell some more people about what's going on with their assessed values. And thank you for watching Spotlight on Jackson County. Join us again next week.